So, as a publishing editor, I also want to encourage my authors, and I want to show them the reliable metrics, and the authors expect this. And so that's why we started with this whole exercise in 2015. And so Bookmetrix brings together the attention paid to the use of and the impact of books. And the books, they benefit hugely from these new ways of attention and impact. And so here's an example. This book actually is a book describing the structure of the DNA, and it was published in 1978. So it's quite old, and you see a first wave of citation, and then here with the age of the era of genetic manipulation, you see a second wave of citation. But it's not even at a plateau yet, or maybe it's getting to a plateau, but it's a lot of citations, and why did we miss that in the first place? Well, the reason is that the traditional citation databases, they underestimate the number of citations. So if we look at Scopus and Web of Science, Scopus indexes 20% of our books. Web of Science indexes 10% of our books. Your book has been cited, but Scopus decided not to index it. And that's why we work with Crossref, and we find these numbers, and we can say, okay, on average, there are 20 citations per book, and the cited half-life is 20. And if you compare that with articles, we see that they only have 10 citations on average, and a cited half-life of 5 years. And I think that's also an important realization. Where do your citations come from? And here is an example that we did already many years ago, but it's still interesting. So we took 30 articles in stem cell research, and we looked up the number of citations in each of these platforms. And astonishingly, the numbers differ enormous. So Google Scholar has the highest because they index everything, it's not curated, and they take everything that vaguely smells scientific. Scopus is a little bit lower, similar in Web of Science, and Crossref is here. But it's good to realize that these numbers differ a lot, and you can tweak your numbers the way you like it by just using a different source. The other thing that's quite interesting with regard to Crossref, it has gained quite a lot of momentum recently. And that is through the Initiative for Open Citations, or I4OC. And so the Initiative for Open Citation is a community-driven initiative. And they request that we publishers open up the lists of references so that anyone can study those. We've done that together with a lot of other publishers, not all of them yet. As you can see, we are now at 52%, maybe it's already a little bit higher again. So, but 52% of all the references in all the scholarly work is now in Crossref openly available. And that is actually driving new initiatives. As you can see here, all of these initiatives are using the Crossref citation data. So my guess is that Crossref will become more and more a new standard for citation data. Okay, back to Bookmetrix. So what we found out is that not only for the citations it's an advantage, but that books are also discussed online. So here we have a book published in 1991, and in January of 2015, which is 26 years later, someone decided to mention this book in a blog. And what you see is a huge wave of social media activity on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. And that's not only for this incidental case. If we look at all the books published before the year 2000, we saw that 1 out of 2 books have an online mention. If we look across the world, we see that Twitter is a very dispersed picture. People tweet about books everywhere. Facebook is a slight preference in North America. News is similar all over the world, and public policy is still fairly local, but that's because they haven't indexed all sources yet. So it doesn't mean that the policy documents here in Japan are citing scholarly work. It's just that the policy documents in Japan haven't been indexed by Altmetric yet. Okay, so where do we find the Bookmetrix? On the various content platform, Palgrave, A-Press, Springer. And if you click on one of these words, you go to the details page. Now, we have a lot of items there, and you can see whether it's a book or open access. these are the live data that you see here, the download, citations, reviews, mentions from Altmetric, and readers in Mendeley. The readers means that somebody has downloaded the PDF of the book and saved that PDF in his Mendeley library. If you really want to find out all details about the metrics, you can click on one of those and you go to the details page and you can see who's been citing you, who's been tweeting about your book, and much more than that. And so we added some benchmarking, and in this case the benchmarking is using books published in the same year in the same discipline, and we take the average of that. And of course this book that I took as an example is an outlier, where you see it outcompetes both in downloads and citations all the other books published in the same year in the same discipline. We've also added a little box to be transparent whether you have chapter citations within the book, so self-citations or external citations. So you can see that here, series link that will take you to the book series page. Most notable here also is the book series link that will take you to the book series page. Some recommended reading and the ebook collection highlight, I'll show you that in a minute. So if you click on download and your university has a subscription to this particular ebook collection, you can download it immediately or you can buy the print. If it doesn't, then you can buy the print or the ebook. Here we have an example of the in-book citation. So this book has no external citation but 62 internal citations. Just to be sure, this is not fraudulent behavior. This is really how books work, that they cite each other. Just to show that there's a correlation between the chapters. Now, we also added a couple of author services for the book authors and editors. And we work with GRADE, which is an institutional identifier. And so even when you say Texas University or University of Texas, doesn't matter. We will assign the identifier, and so we know for sure that that's the right institution. What I wanted to create also for the book authors is a report. As I said, they don't get any recognition from university, and so what I wanted to create is a one-pager that they could download as a PDF or something else, and add that to the grant proposal, add that to the research assessment, wherever they think it's useful. And so you can download for all the books without any login for free a report of the book of your choice. Preferably your own book, but that's up to you. Some of the authors were very eager, and so they would email me on the first of every month. And so we created an automated service where we will share the delta with the authors if they want to. And so you can subscribe here, and we will email you that in this case in June. You had so many citations to the book, you had so many social media mentions, and you had so many downloads. I already mentioned that we also have a book series page. We took a slightly different approach, so we still have the summarized data there, but we wanted to give it some feeling of who are the authors that are writing for books in this particular series. Who are the people that are backing this series? And so here you see this series has 100 books. It's Belgrade Studies in European Union Politics. And in this box what you can see is how many authors came from the various institutions. And now you suddenly see that we have 14 authors from the European Commission that are working along this book series. So it gives it some prestige, or at least in my opinion it helps to assess the quality of the authorship. Then you can view it on SpringerLink, etc. But we also have a box here where the books in this series have been cited. So again, aggregated data, just to give you a feeling who are the readers of the book series. We hope this helps people to make a choice where to publish and in which book series. The last one is the collection discovery page. This is in particular created for librarians who acquire content, and we have a little summary. You can select a year that you want to see for a certain collection, so in this case 2016 has 640 books. They have an accumulated metrics here, And we created a new metric for that, citation, collection citation performance. There's another metric, and here we have a breakdown of those 600 books. That you can see, oh, this book series, this collection have quite a lot of contributed volumes. So it makes a bit more tangible what kind of stuff you're dealing with. We also have the top performing books in a certain subject collection. Either you can look at the downloads or at the citations. Now the way we calculate this collection citation performance is by taking the number of citations in a given year, 2 books published in the 2 preceding years in that particular collection. And we divide that by the total number of books published in the same collection in the 2 preceding years. If you think this looks familiar to another calculation, yes, that is correct. It's very similar to the impact factor calculation, only we take books and not articles, and we take a subject collection and not a journal. But it does give us some advantage, because now suddenly you can compare the subject collection with journals. And with the high number of books that we have per subject collection, that also justifies. So for example, in computer science, we see that over the past years, between 2007 and 2017, the collection citation performance has increased enormously to 11. Now, if that were an impact factor, and the subject collection were a journal, it was one of the best computer science journals. So that's how we can now correlate these 2 things, and you can see whether or not you're publishing in a good collection. Now, all of this, what you've seen so far, is public data. You don't need to log in. Everybody can see it. We're very transparent, freely available. And with that, we can help you, the librarians or whoever, research associates, with more information about your particular use case. And I would like to show you a couple of examples. So it looks like this. It's basically a virtual bookshelf with 260,000 books. And using these filters, we can slice and dice as we like. We can select the year of publication, or the country, or the institute, with this grid, the ebook collection, etc., or a combination of all these. Here I looked at the various collections, and I plotted the average citations per book, the average downloads, and the average online mentions. And what's quite interesting is that you see a picture that is very similar to the journal world, actually. So, for example, biomedicine and life science, they always have huge lists of references, and so the impact factor is high. Here you see also that for books, they do the same. They also have long reference lists, and so you have a high number of citations. Computer science, they're on the internet, obviously, because they work on computers, and so you see that the average mentions are much higher than in other disciplines. And so, yeah, if you sift along these, you see that it's actually very similar to the journal world. If we zoom into the books published in 2017, and in particular at the Altmetric, we see that also they're used on very different places. So in news stories, but also 70 policy documents, 100 videos that are citing a book. Wikipedia, nearly 700. So that's actually quite nice and one patent. Now if we look at the books published in 2016 and authored by people from Japan, then we see here the top mentioned, the top reviewed, and the top cited books, ranging between 150 and 50. Here's, I believe it's 61 and 32 citations. So these are really good books, and this is their performance within the course of 1 year. In total, 400 books and over 9,000 chapters. And here's a breakdown of that, where you see this is a histogram of the citations that they have, and for the mentions. And the primary disciplines, Japan seems to be with book publishing, strong in computer science, medicine, public health, engineering, physics, life science, etc. This is the top 10. Now if we look at the top authoring institutions, we can do that as well. So again, all the books published in 2016, but now we look where are the institutes that contribute most authors to the books that we publish. No surprise, the top 10 is in Germany because of our very strong German language publishing program. But nonetheless, here on 21 we find University of Tokyo, who has more than 40 authors who contributed in 2017 to our book publishing program. Last example, we can also compare, we can do some benchmarking now. So what I've done here, I've taken social science, I calculated the averages. So I've taken the average of books authored by people from Japan versus book authored in social science from all over the world. And you see that actually the social science books published from authors in Japan are a little bit better than the rest of the world. Downloads a bit lower, but mentions also a bit higher. Or maybe you want to see, for example, here we have Hitotsubashi University, and these are the books that they published in a given year, in total, I'm sorry. And they published 170 books, and we can create for you a list with all the books that were published for your university, and also how the number of books that were published by that university increased over the years. So that's a lot of helping you maybe with your assessment or your research assessment, with your evaluation, university evaluation. If you have to go back to government and say, hey, this is my portfolio, here are the books that count, and did a great job. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and say stop judging books by the cover.